We have another subscriber question. This subscriber says, could you please do a tutorial on how to paint dappled shade? Okay, let's give that one a try. I'm going to give a how-to quick tip. I like to give you a how-to that would work on a number of things. I don't like to say, this is the way that you. I like to guide you through how to think about things, and then that way you can use maybe the same guidance towards interpreting a number of things. So here's what you need to observe and pay attention to when you're painting dappled shade. Now I have a slide here of my driveway. My driveway is covered with trees, so it gave me some wonderful dappled shade. All right, so let's pay attention. What do we see there? What's causing us to see that? Okay, we pay attention to the value contrast, not only the value contrast, but the value variation. Now, if you focus your attention on each one of those little spots of light, you'll see that none of them have a hard edge. That on every single spot of light you see, the edge is gradated. So there's one thing, that the lights don't have hard edges. And then look at the darks that you see. Focus on the actual shadows you see. You'll see that those darks that you see actually vary in contrast. You also see some of the dappled light varying in contrast. So observe it for the way to look at this. Look for the degree of contrast. How strong is the contrast? Or how moderate or close is the contrast, and look for edges. How diffused are the edges? Don't think you'll find any dappled light that's going to have hard edges. There's the other thing. And then you look for the pattern. Now the pattern is going to tell you something about what's casting the shadow, or what's causing the dappled light. So you want to look for that pattern. Now I'll show you very briefly here. First of all, let me say that take the color that you use from the color of the surface. Now this happens to be a driveway. It comes off as gray, so that's not much to go on. But the dappled light could appear on grass. And if it does, if dappled light appears on the grass, then the shadow color is going to be cooler than the color that has the light the strongest. So use that common sense. Whatever's being cast on, whatever the shadow is being cast on, is going to be determined by the hue of the local hue, or we call it local color of that thing. But here we have gray, and that's good enough because the very principle will be better here. So to get gray, in this case I will use I'll use blue and orange just to get the gray, and let's mix. I'm just going to mix a dark gray. I'll just mix it with my brush here, just a little bit of a dark gray. Can we leave it a little bit more cool, just with blue and orange. Now I'm looking for shadow, and I'm gradually lower my brush, and just in this kind of a sketching mode, I'm looking for pattern of that dappled shadow. So what am I noticing here? Well, if I hold my brush up next to the picture of the photograph I'm looking at, and I can begin to look for angle. Do I see an angle of shadow? Do I see angles? And I do. So I'm seeing an angle of that dappled light. I'm seeing an angle that goes in this direction right here. I'm seeing an angle of another part of the dapple going this direction right here. I'm seeing another angle that's going in sort of this direction right here. So what that's telling me is that I have a pattern here that is developed in angles. Now then I began to explore the counter direction. I see some angles. I see angles of dappled light moving like this. I see angles moving like that, and I see angles moving like this. Those angles are perspective lines or patterns that tell us where we're standing. If I were sitting down, I would see those differently. If I were looking straight down at the light, I'd see those different. So the direction of the angles is very important for you to observe. All right, then begin with, look at the value of contrast. Now this is a very dark dark. It's not the darkest dark. It's about a value of 7, 8, something like that. And so then you begin and I'm thinking on a smooth surface like this, it's better to use a stroke that is sort of almost a scrubbing stroke. So I might use a stroke that's going like this, and I now begin to define the dappled shadow. And I'm looking for the pattern, just the pattern. And I'm seeing in the background there that I'm seeing more shadow. Let's keep that, and want to keep that color the same and keep it very thin. I'm seeing that shadow in the background go a little bit, or be a little bit denser than the shadows as they get closer, or the actual shadow of the dapple. All right, so so that begins what I'm seeing in the very distance right there. Now as I get closer, now as I begin to see the real pattern, and so we would do something like this. I begin to kind of work the very thin paint, I begin to see something of this pattern. Now you don't call it leaves, you don't call it dapple light, you simply look at the shape of each of those dark pieces as they fall in the shadow. Someplace they get skinny, someplace they get fatter, and sort of going like that. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, because to do the entire dapple of shadow there would take us a little while. So I'm just going to just enough to show you, I'm going to smooth this out a little bit, just enough to show you how it works. So let's just get just enough of that dapple right there. And you notice that these are very thin. So look at the size, and very spider webby. So look at the size. Look at the size of each of those little pieces, little spider webby pieces. All right, now I'll begin there. Then what do we do? Next thing we do is the light. Now, if you make a policy, or practice, not policy, if you make a practice of always doing the shadow first, it makes it easier. If you try to do the light first, you won't have anything to contrast it with. So if I go for the light of that, then I would go and see what is the value difference. Now, talked about there being strong value difference in some places. Let's get a little bit of white paint here and add a little bit of a warm color. In this case, I'll add a little bit of orange to it. I'll probably take more than that. Let's see, a little bit of orange. Now, where's that the brightest? Where it's the brightest, oh, did I leave enough space there to show it? Where's the brightest? Let's just say right here. Notice that angle. All right, the bright goes in that angle right there. The light goes in that angle. And as it moves in that angle, it gradates away. And then we notice that it moves in another angle too. It moves in this angle and it gradates away like that. Let's see, continue with that, just applying the light. I'll show you how we blend that out. Okay, here goes in an angle, and it goes in a counter angle. Here it goes in an angle and a counter angle. And let's see, we've probably got enough there. Let's do just a little bit more because the value does change. Then we're going to wipe off the brush, and we're going to blend. Let's get that brush totally wiped off here. Now we're going to begin to blend, and we blend in the direction of the dapple. So we blend it here, blend it up into here, blend it into here, and we begin to get that feeling of dapple. Blend it into here. We're going to keep that light, and this is using just a dry brush. But pay attention as you're moving in your directions of blend. Pay attention to that directional movement that you see in the darks and in the lights. So they are going in the same angle. So perhaps I should say pay attention to that angle and keep that angle as you're moving in. Let's see, at the point when I feel like I have shown you that feeling of dapple. See, we have variation in value. In some places they're a little, the shadow area is a little darker. In some places the shadow area is a little lighter. So we get that initial dark coat on there, then we use the light. And we use the light within that, or the lighter paint within that, to show those variations of the light. So it's actually, dapple shadow is actually just as much dapple light as it is dapple shadow. So Let's see, maybe I've shown you enough of that so that you can get the feeling of dapple shadow. So if you found this quick tip helpful, you know what I'm going to say. You've got all these full-length tutorial videos on DianneMize.com. Lots and lots and lots of principles taught there, making you, hoping to make you a better painter. And also, if you are, if you're interested in my showing you a quick tip, leave a comment right down here and let us know what you'd like to see. And beyond that, there's your quick tip.